All right, all praises unto Yahweh Shemi Al Shai, the honestly apostles of GMS. Honestly, brothers will be pushing this truth in sincerity. Okay, so it's gonna be a quick video um, regarding a topic that me and the brother that you see pretty much right at the top of the video right here. His name's Paya Allah. Okay, one of the heads of the London camp. Pretty much was getting into this conversation regarding this kingdom and these metropolises that you have set out here, and you got a lot of individuals that go through a hell of a lot of work. So he was scooping me up on some info. You know, I learned a lot from them brothers, and I feel blessed that the Most High has it to where I could be amidst those brothers, if not all the time, but at the very least some of the time. You know, these are individuals that I've learned a hell of a lot from, and you know they've learned a lot from the elders in turn. Okay, so it's just a chain effect that the Most High set forth, starting first and foremost with the apostles of GMS and the brothers that come underneath them, and then these principles of manhood, principles of the doctrine of Yahweh Shemi Al Shai is being pushed forth in its purity. Okay, because that's what it comes down to. See, you got a lot of people coming up down to the camp. They're saying, "What is this all about?" Ultimately, it's about truth. Truth about what? About everything, but most importantly, about the scriptures. Okay, because you go out there into the schools, they'll tell you that the sun rotates around the earth rotates around the sun. Okay, but you're gonna find out that's actually not the case, man. All right, and so on and so forth alike. And that chain effect of truth goes down the ladder. And one of those things I'm going to touch on right now is the mentality of these people. Okay, the mentality of these people living out there within their metropolises. And really, it comes down to it comes down to a thing of a hive mentality. Okay, and Esau uses that to his advantage to further on his agenda, which is this which is spoken about within the book of Psalms, the 2nd chapter, and Psalms, the 83rd chapter, about how he has taken crafty counsel, okay, against the anointed of the Most High, and ultimately he's trying to destroy the people of the Most High, okay. But the people of the Most High, they was gonna be what? They was gonna be in them big mega cities, so he can push an idea out there, and that thing catches on quick, man. Okay, that's why this whole LGBT thing, that was. I mean, okay, it was out there, but that whole thing is out there prominent now, man. Because when it hit them mega cities, which is really the main thing I'm going to touch on, and how really a place like London, that's going to be like one of the worst places to live out there, man. Okay, and we're going to see that in those different within these 2 different articles that I got prepared, and I'll touch on different subjects. I'll try to keep the train of thought as pure as possible. Okay, because I'm known to go tangentially sometimes, so I'll keep it as direct as I possibly can. Okay, but you're gonna see that the mentality of these people is all screwed up, man. Pretty much what Esau does is he enslaves people and sticks them in sardine cans. That's what Esau does. Okay, and because you're in that rat race, you don't consider the fact that you really are just a slave, man. Okay, you're working so fervently hard to keep this man's kingdom going on in a polluted, okay, in the worst living conditions that it could possibly be. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with this precept right here, which is in the book of Micah, the 2nd chapter and the 10th verse. So it says, "Arise ye, depart, for it is not your rest, okay, because it is polluted, even with a sore destruction." Okay, right. So because it is polluted, and it shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. Okay, and we're going to see one of those. We'll touch on a few subjects regarding some of the polluted, but really ultimately it comes down to a thing of mentality. Okay, you got to rise up mentally out of this. Your spirit, your anastrophe, your conversation, it's got to be outside of Babylon, man. Okay, you can't be looking to set up businesses and your minds, far beyond whatever in the kingdom that is hell bent on destroying, man. Okay. So let's start off with and both of these articles were passed on to me by this by the brother there, and I read them, and I asked him. I said, "Yo, can I do a video on that? Because man, it's incredible what you're gonna see." So we'll start off on this one right here, okay? And this is written by an individual who was a journalist, I believe it was. Okay, and she was basically explaining how it's going. I mean, you can read all of it for you. I'll give you the nutshell. Pretty much, she spent a certain amount of time within London and within the rat race, as she mentions it. And when we really get into it, you're gonna see that really it's a shithole. Okay, them places are shitholes. But that's what people are basically working fervently hard to maintain. You're fervently working hard to maintain a shithole lifestyle. Okay, and that goes for any city. Okay, but we're just using London as the example. That goes for any city. But see, when you have people so densely compacted within each other, that whole the whole idea of Esau having you in this hardcore situation of captivity, that goes even more further. Okay, so when you're out there within the suburbs, yeah, you might have to drive in and experience the so-called London lifestyle or the New York lifestyle for a certain amount of time. Okay. But then you always got the thought of, okay, I'll get my head out of here, drive out. And that's what Esau does within these metropolis cities. If you know anything about Esau will drive into them places and it'll be gone. Same thing with where I stay at. Esau will drive out from the next peripheral cities, man. Okay, villages. Okay, Esau will drive in from them villages and come down to the work. And all of us peasants, we live we're living within 2 mile radius, man. Okay, so let's get into this. So it says here, the title is called "Tired of London, Not Life." Okay, because you got a lot of psychological implications, and you're going to see that within the next article. You got a lot of psychological implications of living within these cities, but more specifically London, because you got a hell of a lot of witchcraft out there. Okay, if you're talking about all the major cities, okay, London's gonna be one of the worst places to live at because you got a lot of demonic forces being pushed forth out there. Okay, because the scripture talks about the crafty council, or the vast, a large proportion of that crafty council takes place out there within London, man. Okay, there's a heavy spirit of witchcraft out there. Okay, so let's read on. It says there, the very first statement she makes, it says, arriving at work after another moist commute on the Northern Line with the Northern Line, that's our metro. Okay, that's our tube, the underground rail service that they have out there. With a stranger's sweat smeared on me, and the grime of the city seeped into every pore. Okay, of which that's going to be unhealthy. You got, like I said, the scripture says the love of this world, okay, is enmity with the Most High. But see, what you're loving within this world is destroying you anyway. So you might as well just love what the Most High is going to provide, man. Because the way we're going to set our cities, we ain't going to be dealing with these kind of issues that these articles going to be going into, man. Okay. You ain't gonna be living no high stress life. Now, see, for these slaves, they're gonna live hardcore for a certain amount of time, but ultimately they're gonna be rejoicing after after they get, because Esau's raping and robbing them heathens too right now, man. Okay, so they're gonna be all right when we get after they serve hardcore captivity underneath. After a certain amount of time, they're gonna be all right, man. The scripture talks about when the righteous are in rulership, the people are rejoice. Okay. So it says, what am I doing here? As a journalist, I spent my days writing about how readers could have had it all, right? A healthy work-life balance, a healthy work-life, a balanced success, sanity, right? Sobriety, right? All whilst sporting a radiant glow, right? A dry and clean, only clothes. Okay, it says in reality I'm still paying off student loans, and that's what you got out here. Okay, so you got Nate out there and individuals like ISUPK and other individuals in Christian churches and that, and they're of their mindset that you gotta embetter yourself. Okay, you gotta put your life together. Okay, but when you're putting your life together like these individuals have done, gone to the degree, gone and did the degree, they got a high paying job, which this is an individual. This is coming from an individual that's on the up scale. Okay, this is the top scale of Edomiteness right here. Okay, we ain't dealing with like just some Jake out there that done writ this thing. We're dealing with one of them Edomites that went through the whole thing, and they're telling you that this kingdom is a shithole, man. Okay, so it says in reality I'm still paying off student loans, which that's just how this society works. Okay, this society works off of debt And if I can quote the Apostle Gabar, what did he say? All right, he said that the currency of kings is gold. Okay, the currency of noblemen is silver, and the currency of slaves is debt. Okay, so all of these individuals out here, they're all slaves, man. Okay, and when these elite banking families, when they want to scoop up their own children into certain fields of understanding, they're paying that thing off there and then, man. Okay, whereas the average person out there, even up into the middle classes, they're taking out all kinds of loans to pay off these so-called university degrees, man. Which when you go into them university degrees, they're nothing but BS, because you have a module here about something that's unrelated to the next module. So you're spending 1 hour studying another thing, and the next hour you're spending something completely different. How are you supposed to learn like that? The proof of that is when you study the scriptures. When you study the scriptures, what you're doing, you're just going through topic by topic. You might spend a day working on reincarnation. Boom, you got it. All right, locked down and sealed until you find out the elders brought a video expounding upon certain things, and you thought you had it tight, but actually you didn't know anything, man. But that's all an experience thing, and that really goes to humble you, because you might think you know a subject, and then the experts go into that subject and expound on it, and you're like, man, you know. All right, but to carry on with this, it says, hey, in reality, I'm still paying off student loans, relying on industrial quantities of caffeine a day, of which that can't be healthy. Okay, and self-medicating with Sauvignon Blanc in the evenings. So this person is basically saying they're an alcoholic. Okay, yep, they're basically saying they're an alcoholic, because why? Because they got to deal with the situation, and this is coming from Esau. So Jake out there, okay, that are catching hell, they're gonna have to be self-medicating by some other means, man. Okay. That's why you got a lot of gang violence, a lot of drug dealings, and so on and so forth. Which a drug dealer is nothing but a witch. Okay, the scripture talks about suffer not a witch to live, and that's what you got within these metropolis cities. But that's what Nate's saying. You got to push for. Okay, that's what these individuals are saying. You got to push for this lifestyle. Okay, of which you ain't ever gonna be on this level. Okay, for the average person out there within IUIC or within these different camps, okay, you're never gonna be on this level as this white woman. Okay, you're gonna be working them what you call them, secretary type jobs. Okay, you'll be working for her. Okay, getting the coffees, man. So you're gonna be catching all types of hell. So your best bet is to invest, all right, into these scriptures, man. You got to think where you're going to invest in something. The best thing to invest in is within these scriptures, within Yahweh Shem Shai, so you can make it out of here, man. Okay, so then you can relax. Okay, so it says that I worked in a team of brilliant people, all on their A game, right, and apparently thriving on London life, but I wasn't, right, and I felt like a fraud. So she's basically saying she's not the pick of the litter when it comes to intelligence, but nevertheless, the point still remains the same. It says I had a job I had worked hard for, and in an industry I'd told in for more than a decade. Okay, so this is not a person that's just been in there for 2 months or something like that. It says, but once I had got there, I thought once I had what I wanted, I wasn't any happier, but just busier. And that goes to show you that you're just nothing but a slave within this society, man. See, here it is, you make it up on a certain type of level. You thinking you're going to have time to spend with your kids, okay? You're going to have time for your family, for your friends and all of that. You ain't got that kind of time within this kingdom. Once you surpass a certain cap in terms of money, man, that company owns your ass, man. And I've seen that with my own eyes. Once you surpass a certain quantity of money, you are owned by that company, man. So you got these guys talking about, look, I make this, that, and the third amount. Yeah, but you got to work 7 days a week. I ain't trying to work 7 days a week, man. I'm trying to be about this spirit, man. See, that whole thing of loving this world, that goes to just destroying things. Okay, and all the while you're trying to maintain some kind of your head above the ground, and you're considering that as a success. And that ain't no success, man. The success is gonna come by when Yahweh says, okay, these are my men. Okay, they're gonna inherit this land. You're gonna be paying off this loan for that. No. You got it. Okay. In fact, people gonna be loaning certain portions of it from you. Okay, right, and they're gonna pay you for it. You might have acres and acres of land that's very fertile. But you might not have you're not gonna have all the time in the world to do whatever you want. You're gonna have all the time in the world, but there comes a limit to what you can do, man. So people are gonna say, okay, with me, I'm gonna rent that land from you. I'm gonna farm that land. Okay, or maybe not necessarily rent, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say, man. The resources, okay, the money is gonna be flowing our direction, not outward. Okay, it is gonna be flowing on the inward direction. In fact, the scripture goes as far as saying that Jerusalem is never gonna be closed because the forces of the Gentiles is gonna be consistently, barring the Sabbath and the high holy days, is gonna be consistently flowing through Jerusalem, man. Okay, so we're gonna be getting them spices, okay, the turmeric, okay, the cumin, all right, the coriander, okay, right, the purple, okay, the peacocks, all of them things are gonna be flowing through Jerusalem, man. Okay, instead of so you gotta, it makes sense to be more kingdom minded, man. Okay, so let's carry on with this. So it says, I'm gonna skip around a little bit right now in the interest of time. So it says, my husband and I had would work long hours and never seemed to have any time to see each other much. Okay, it says, and that's hell. Okay, knowing that you got a woman out there, you ain't seen her for a certain amount of time. You really want your woman out there in the kitchen, dressed in a way that appeases you within the house, right? Cooking up some good food, man. Okay, that's actually beneficial to a man's spirit, man. Okay, and that's another hell you're gonna catch within these metropolis cities because them women are all bugged out. Because why? Because Esau put that seed within there, really to attack Jake, that feminist seed, and then you got it to where them hoodlings and whether they be the good girls or whatever, they're all on the same mental path. They don't even know what they're answering. They just come out and spew it out, man. Right, because they're on the hive mentality. They are being pre-programmed. Okay, so let's carry on with this for a little while longer, and I'll go into the other article. I don't want to take too long with this one. So it says, okay, so it says so other than encountering the others as a warm body in the bed at night, it says we went out a lot. Okay, because it's London. All right, it says, but regularly we had to bribe ourselves to get through the days with online shopping of fancy stationery purchases. I said we both had colds on and off for 6 months, okay, as well as tonsillitis, all right, but that was normal, right? Okay. Which that shit ain't normal, man. Okay, it says I was 33. And we'd also been trying for children. So them kind of situations are stressful like that. You ain't gonna be able to procreate like that, because really, if you're dealing on a man's perspective, stress is detrimental to your testosterone levels, man. That's detrimental. Okay, so them high rises cities like that, man. That's gonna be where the Most High is gonna deliver his people out of, and that's where the Most High is gonna destroy what's left from out of there, because that's just completely against nature, man. Okay, that's completely against nature. In fact, the scripture goes as far as saying that 3-story buildings is the max height, man. Okay, which that just makes sense. Okay, so it says, but we were always stressed out, right, that it could never quite happen. Okay, it says, which when you work in an all female office and colleagues around you are going off on maternity leave, etc., etc. She's gonna go into a female rant and that. So when you read the rest of the article, and you can check out the rest of the article for yourself, I might post it within the comment section. Okay. But when you read the rest of it, really, she was this individual and their partner, and that they was really going down on the same route that these individuals out there are going. Okay, they're on that rat race mentality. Okay, and the only thing that they can keep themselves going is just doing some more shopping, man. Which that ain't living. Okay, so let's expound upon some of those things that were said here, but let's go into it on a little bit more of a scientific basis. And again, this article was sent to me. Okay, and after already I said, look, I got to do a video on this. So it says 6 cities. Okay, why urban living can be bad for your mental health. Okay, it's bad for your mental health, and this is what Nate's trying to say. Nate's not saying let's go out there into the rural areas and this, that, and the third, and we set this up. And no, he's trying to coexist right within the so-called white man's infrastructure that he's built for you. Really, the prisons that he's built for you. Okay, because you look at them high-rise, buildings that they have out there for Jake. Okay, that's living within these metropolis cities. That's nothing but a prison, man. You go to work, you slave over the job, okay, to benefit a kingdom that doesn't benefit you. You work for a company that's probably destroying the earth, okay? Once you've done all of that, you're going to go back onto your jail cell, you're going to close the door, and then you're going to see all the other jail mates within that cell as you go up in there. That's all it is. Okay? That's just the truth about it. Okay? So let's carry on with this. It says, you're only down, just zoom in a little bit. There we go. Right? You're lying down, right, with your head in a noisy, tight-fitting fMRI brain scanner, which is unnerving in itself. You'd agreed to take part in this experiment, and at first, the psychologist in charge seemed nice. Okay, it says they set you in some rather confusing math. They set you some rather confusing math problem to solve against the clock, and you are doing your best, but they aren't happy. Can you please concentrate a little bit better? They keep saying into their headphones, or you're amongst the worst performing individuals that you have studied in the laboratory. Helpful things like that. It is a relief when the time runs out. So it says, few people would enjoy this experience, and indeed the volunteers who underwent it were monitored to make sure that they had a stressful time. Okay, so when they did the experiment, the experiment was not to do the maths, but actually to give them a stressful experience. Okay, so it says their minor suffering, however, provided data for what became a major study and a global news story. The researchers, led by etc., right, were trying to find out more about how your brain, or rather more how the brains of different people handle stress. And they discovered that city dwellers' brains, compared with those who live in the countryside, right, seem not to handle it so well. Okay, and where is Jake mainly situated at? He's situated out there within them cities. Okay, so it says, that's why the scripture says what it says, man. Arise, you depart, for this is not your rest. Okay, if it was your rest, you'll be able to do what Esau does. Okay, commute to work. Okay, and go back to your countryside villa. Okay, chill out, relax. Okay, right. But even that's slavery. Even that's hardcore bondage. Okay, when we get into the kingdom, you know, you're gonna have to administer. You're gonna administer. You're gonna take 6-7 years off. Hey, you're gonna take 6-7 years off, man. You ain't gonna be any poorer when you come back. All right, you're probably gonna be more wealthy. Okay, children, your 100 children, you're gonna be stronger, bigger. They were taking care of shit. Okay, to be specific, right? His compliances were stressed out by their subjects. Okay, and says and they were looking at the two brain regions. Okay, the amygdalas and the peruginoid arteria, right? Let's see. So that's too scientific for me. That I call it the PACC. Okay, it says the amygdalas, also known to be involved in assessing threats and generating fear, right? While the PACC, right, in turn helps to regulate the amygdalas. In the stress city dweller, right, while the PACC where we're going. So it says the amygdalas appeared more active on scanners. Okay, in people who lived in small towns, less so. Okay, it says in people who lived in countryside, least of all. Okay, it says and stress leads to death. There's no two ways about it. Stress leads to death. So you know what the scripture says. You know, if the Most High don't come soon, there'll be no flesh to save. Well, this is one of the things that you got to deal out there, man. Okay, that's why death rates is so high and people getting all kind of you know. Hey, stress is really more harmful to your immune system. Okay, that's the main thing that gets attacked with when you got high stress levels. But when your immune system is attacked, man, a cold could take you out. Okay, and something even more so intriguing was what's happening in the PACC. Here, the important relationship was not. Here, the important relationship was not with where the subject lived at the time, but where they grew up. Again, those with rural childhoods show the least active PACCs. Okay, those in urban areas, the ones the most, and in urban groups, moreover, they seem not to have the same smooth connections between the behavior of the two brain regions that was shown in others. And the erratic link between the two regions, right, is often seen in those with schizophrenia, and schizo people are much more likely to live in cities. Okay, so it's going to show you, man, that how you're living ain't right, man. Okay, and we can only hope that the Most High comes soon so we can get out of the situations that we're in right now. Okay, because it's the worst situation ever. Right, the worst possible situation that it could be. It says when the results were published in Nature 2011, media all over the world hailed the study as proof that cities sent us mad. And when you go to where Babylon's spewing out all of that Babylon juice, okay, you're gonna have craziness spewing out even at a faster rate, man. Okay, just carry on. It says, but it didn't. But of course it proved. Of course, it proved no such thing, but it did suggest it. It says, even allowing all of these unusual caveats amount the limitations of MRI imaging, the small size of the study group, and the huge holes that still remained in our understanding, the results offered a tempting glimpse at the kind of urban warping of our minds that some people at least have linked to this city life since the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so it says, so let's jump. I'm gonna jump to just jump around now in the interest of time, maybe one or two more paragraphs. So it says, at least at the same time, urban living, right, was found to raise the risk of anxiety disorder, mood disorder, respectively by 21% and 39%. Okay. Interestingly, however, a person's risk to addiction disorder are seen not to be affected, because I think that goes down to dopamine or something or other like that, which that varies independent, as they're saying, of where you live at. But if you're seeing anxiety disorder and mood disorder, so your whole spirit is thrown off within the very place that we're calling home, man. Okay, it says, so why is it the larger the settlement you live, the more likely you are to become mentally ill. Okay, so it says, a keen advocate of the theory, which implies that most paradoxical urban mixture, loneliness in crowds, right? Obviously, our brains are not perfectly shaped for living in urban environments. Aldi says, it says, in my view, if social density and social isolation come at the same time and hit high-risk individuals, the stress-related mental illnesses can be the consequence. Okay, so that paragraph pretty much speaks for itself. So again, you can check out this article for yourself, and it goes into it. All right, but the situation that we're living in right now it's just far from the best thing that it could possibly be. Okay, and the only hope that we got is that Yahweh Shemi Ashai is going to return soon and fix us from the situation that we're in right now. So let me just read this scripture again once more. Okay, check out the articles for yourself. All right, throw out for the brother for imparting that information to me. Okay, so it says, arise ye, depart, for it is not your rest, because it is polluted, and it shall destroy you even with a sore destruction. Okay, so what I'm gonna say, all praises unto Yahweh Shemi Shai, double honors to the apostles of GMS, and all brothers that be pushing this truth and sincerity. I'll see you on the next one. Yahweh Shemi Shai Ratazah. Shalom.